and gentlemen, welcome to another Camel Chat. And I'll tell you today, I'm excited. I got one of the gurus. I have scored. Seriously, this is the A team of Camel Chats today. Now, who am I talking about? Now, this guy, if you're part of the duda community, you will know him. All right. If you follow his super successful agency, which is Develomark.com, you'll be very familiar with our guest today, which is Ruan Marinho. All right. Now, what's so good about him? One, he's a good looking bloke. Two, he's got some great stuff, right? But he's been in the digital business since 2015. And I love him because he started off in sales with AT&T. Then just 3 years later, folks, his journey with Develomark started. And if my memory serves me correctly, he'll tell me if I'm wrong, in 2021, he hit the big number. He hit the six-figure mark with Develomark, which they've done that because they're a team of top performers, great people in his organization. Now, his point of view and his opinion is highly sought after. So he's a regular, not just on webinars, but he's also in front of the bright lights on stage, and he does the most awesome videos. This guy, he should be on Netflix. I'm telling you, right? Now, what else do I love about him? This could be interesting. Ruan is very bullish on crypto, the metaverse, and AI. So apart from finding out, because folks, you know, I'm bear. So this could be a little bit of a punch on here, I tell you, right? But he himself, the man, we're going to talk a little bit about him, where he came from, what got him where he is today. And that should also be interesting. So ladies and gentlemen, drum roll, please. Let's welcome Ruan Marinho to the Camel Chat. Welcome, mate.
Shane, thank you so much for having me on. It wasn't very difficult for you to do it.
Because we are brothers from another mother. So I just dropped him a line and said, mate, you want to chat? Right? It's the same with Nat Rosacco. And actually, it's funny. Anton Schultz said, how can you get people so easy? I said, because we're all family.
Right.
We're all grown up together, right? And it's funny. And even a couple of the whales, you know, the enterprise, I think you're enterprise too, right?
Yes, I am.
Like the enterprise clients are the hardest ones to get. The white label are just so difficult because they don't want to talk about duda, right?
Right.
And plug, we're powered by duda, right? So Anton's a little bit jealous, right? And I turned around and I said, mate, what are you going to do? Because it's the same thing that, you know, you get the normal people, but the ones you really want, so interesting, but, you know, they've got their own massive businesses to run. But I find it easy because we're not talking about websites. We're talking lots of different stuff. And, you know, especially find out. So I'm going to start off with the first big question. The first big question is the elevator pitch of Ruan. Where you came from, where you were born, where you grew up, a little bit about mum and dad, family environment, and where you went to school. And that will lead us to where we can go from there. So you got the floor for 5 minutes to give us the big pitch about life.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Ruan Marinho. I was born in Brazil, which is Latin America, which you probably didn't know.
I didn't know that.
I moved to America when I was 4, the United States of America. At the time, Brazil didn't have a good economy. And now America is having a falling economy. So it's interesting the way things change fast. So as I got to America, I fell in love with video games, specifically because we were very poor. And I was able to escape reality by playing games. So I got really good at internet and gaming and forums and chats and all of this other stuff because there wasn't much to do in my life, right? My parents were always working. I was always at home alone or with my sister. And so they were working to provide. So I was playing games. So from there, I lived in a place called Waterbury, Connecticut, which I'm still at. And I grew up and I got into sales, which eventually got into marketing.
Yep.
And then I started Develomark in 2017. And my dad had a painting business, which he did okay with for a long period of time. And so I used him as a test subject. You know, it's like almost like a weird science experiment. about our product. And then he did really well with our product, which now has become and has evolved into what we do for clients every single day. And from there, he was able to quit advertising. He was able to stop paying for magazines. He was able to do so many wonderful things. So my product I really used on my father. And then once I saw success with that, I started just bringing it, preaching it, bringing it to every single local business I know. And then from there, we started slowly getting accounts one by one by one by one to where we are at now today, which is 256 clients actively. So it's a slow, continuous process. But ultimately, I worked in reverse in that I was the customer of my own product right away. And it worked for my father. And I was answering the phones and people were calling in and they wanted painting estimates. And I started to get goosebumps because I was like, wow, this is a service that I've done. And I'm watching the impact at the dinner table with my family. And so I started bringing this to more businesses. And then I started getting close to them and they started telling other businesses. And so from there, Develomark just started to grow pretty slowly, but continuously. And now we're at $1.7 million per year on an annualized basis. That's what we did last year. And I hope to continue to grow it in a bunch of different avenues, not just website design, but also digital experience, which I'm sure we'll talk about on this call today, on the stuff that I'm bullish about.
Yeah.
And that's my quick elevator pitch.
Wow, I'm impressed. Did you say you were poor, your family?
Oh, yeah, very poor.
How much did that make a difference to you?
Well, it made me not want to be poor. So I think it made a huge difference because, I'm the type of guy to go drive on outside with, the windows down and the heat on.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because I can now.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, we couldn't even turn on the heat. So it's one of those things where, you're eating tomatoes with salt or you're not having air conditioning. You don't have a heater. You're using blankets in the house. That type of stuff made me never want to be poor ever again.
No.
So I chose not to be.
No. And it's funny, that saying, the old saying, money doesn't buy happiness.
Right.
Well, I always say, yeah, but it sure helps.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And I'd prefer to be laughing with a little bit of money in my pocket than crying with none.
With no money.
We were the same. We were so poor,
Yeah.
And I had to leave school at 13, right? Because I couldn't afford to buy Levi jeans. That was the thing. And it was funny. I ended up buying a pair of Lees because I didn't get Levi's that fit, right? But we had like nothing, right? And Dad worked 2 jobs, and Mum was back in the day, you were the housewife and the mum. You didn't go to work, right?
Right.
But I noticed. I wrote a blog years back. One man's junk, another man's riches.
Yep.
And that's how my life was. So I reckon it's a great thing in a way, being poor, because it does teach you as you go along. You can cope with really, really shitty circumstances. Makes you very hungry, makes you adaptable, but it also makes you very creative. Because
interesting because you're more grateful of everything that you do obtain in life.
Oh yeah, I mean, I sit back and I remember Christmas presents. We'd get 3, and they were like donations from other people. My first bike came from the rubbish dump. So I'm not saying it should be a prerequisite of entrepreneurial greatness. Be poor first. But I think it really, really helps us. And I reckon COVID, one of the things that got a lot of us through COVID was we've been poor. And we had to be creative. We had to find new ways super fast, which is crazy. So basically doing the stuff for your dad's business, that was all like the precursor to where you are with Develomark, that culture you have, that was created doing your dad's. How old were you?
At the time, I was 23, so I was really young. I'm 29 now, so 7 years it's been, which is crazy. Think about it.
And what did you do at school?
So in school, I did business management and communication. I quickly didn't continue school after I started Develomark. And That's really, but I didn't learn anything valuable in school. So here's the thing about that. I didn't have the money to learn something valuable from school.
Yeah.
I think that, like you said, it might be hard to get some of the enterprise people on a call. So they're expensive. Their time is very expensive.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a budget to go to a school where the professor's time was expensive. So I decided not to go to school because a lot of the teachers that I had were employees of other businesses. They didn't even
Yeah.
own a business. And so if I had the money to go to an Ivy League school, I would have went. But my situation didn't accommodate that. I thought that school was going to be a huge waste of my time. Was I wrong? I have no idea. But if I could have afforded a school where I was going to learn from CEOs of notable companies like Harvard or a Dartmouth or those types of things, I would have gone to that. But I was going to go to potentially, and there's nothing wrong with state schools at all. But what I'm saying is I wasn't interested in the state school only because I knew that the level of teaching wasn't going to be something I'd be really compassionate about, that I was willing to spend $100,000 on.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I see a lot of guys that have got that 3 letters, the MBA, and they couldn't run an iron lung. I mean, it's just crazy that I'm a great believer in, that street knowledge, that hard knock school, it's good. I'm not saying every expert, you get some experts are just bloody awesome, but I've learned more from street guys. The mentors I have in my life, none of them finished high school.
Right.
And when you look at Zuckerberg, Musk, Gates, all those guys, none of them went to college.
Right.
So
they dropped out.
But we do need it. I mean, my financial guy, which my dad always taught me, have a great accountant, great lawyer, and a great bank manager. Right.
Uh-huh.
And I'm glad those guys went to school.
Right. And you should be glad your doctors went to school.
Yeah, my doctor went to school. And who else? My surgeon.
Imagine the doctor telling you, imagine Shane, the doctor telling you, well, I learned from the guys on the street and I learned from the
yeah, that wouldn't work. I learned brain surgery on YouTube. That didn't work. So yeah. Develomark, actually, you started that really young.
Yeah, I was young. I wish I was a little younger. If I knew this was a thing, I would have started at 7 years old. I didn't know this was a thing. I think that's another problem with being brought up in an area where there's not a lot of entrepreneurs, is that you just don't know the possibilities of starting a business. I always thought, I was born and raised to think that I had to work for someone else. I thought I had to get a job. I thought that I had to make money to pay bills. That's what I thought the life cycle was. And so I used to ask my parents, why do you guys stress so much trying to run this business when you could just go work at McDonald's? I used to ask them that as a kid. And I didn't comprehend the idea of working for yourself, creating some freedom and taking risks and really taking control of your life. And so I always thought that I was going to grow up, get a job. I started getting nervous when I was in high school about like what I was going to do, because all of my friends and all these people that I knew, they wanted to become teachers, they wanted to become policemen, they wanted to become whatever their career was going to be. And I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I knew I was good at talking to people. I always knew that I was good at talking to people, whether it be interviewing them, whether it be communicating with them, whether it just generally passionate about talking to people, which I think is very important in business. And so I didn't think that was a job. Like, what is that? Talking to people? You can't get a degree in talking to people. I mean, I guess you can.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until my job at Verizon, which was before AT&T, where I met a few people that literally said, like, hey, you should start a business doing this for people. And I was just setting up phones, whatever. So I always knew it was going to be something internet related. My dad wanted to go construction. I was not going to go construction. This brain was just too big to start doing manual labor. And I didn't want to do construction. My dad thought what I was doing initially was a big scam. Yeah. He thought that I was just taking money from people and saying I was going to do stuff, until he started getting phone calls. And then he was like, yeah, you got something good, go do it.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. When I went from doing stuff in Australia and I went overseas to do international business. And I can remember talking to my dad every 3 months. And, he would always say, are you in jail yet? I'm not joking.
Yeah.
He had the same attitude. He said, how can you earn all this money? It must be a scam. Right?
Well, yeah. And to be fair, My dad still doesn't know what I do. And to throw in the extra thing here is he's from Brazil. He's foreign. He has an accent. When he moved to America, they ditched everything they knew about their life to come to America so we can get raised in public schools and get raised in America. And ultimately, the product of myself and my sister are successful based on their commitment and what they did, because we both have good careers. My sister's doing really well. I'm doing well. And so what they did worked. So they sacrificed a lot. Like they came here, they didn't even know how to speak anything, right? Not even 1 ounce of English, and they still came. So that was really difficult to watch growing up. My dad actually getting, I don't want to say used, but definitely getting taken advantage of because he didn't understand the language when it came to pricing. So I watched my dad, get screwed a lot. So that kind of always ticked me off a little bit and made me want to really make sure that when I grow up, when I become a big boy, that I can actually take control of my life.
It's funny. You talk to a lot of the guys and gals out there that had immigrant parents, and you get that same story where they wanted them to go to college and they wanted them to grow up, be a lawyer, dentist, and all that sort of stuff. And, they ended up in such. But it's that they gave away so much. And, really, they took so many risks. And you got to wonder if that was, when you look at a mentor for you to be an entrepreneur, even though your dad, right, really would have been happy if you worked in the construction company and you got but really his core attitude that left Brazil are the driving factors for you to be an entrepreneur.
Right. Exactly.
Risk taker, never take no for an answer, learn new skills yourself, because could he speak English? No.
Right.
Right. So all those things, when you look at when you first started Develomark, you got that stuff from your dad anyway.
Right.
Even though he might say, oh, I wish you would have done this, and is it a scam and all that sort of stuff. Because I think at 16, I was earning more money than my father.
That's awesome. That's incredible. And that's what your kid should be doing, right? Like your kid should be the DNA that supersedes you. Because if they're not, then you're going to get cut short in the life cycle of things, right?
Yeah.
So I hope that my kid, I'm going to take significant risk, and I hope that my kid looks back and goes, I don't want to be like my dad. I want to be better.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's the goal. So I agree with you, and it is very much entrepreneurship, as you know, is really like jumping into a murky pool of water. You can't
it's horrible.
Anything.
I mean,
but then as you start to get further down, things start to become very clear after you've been doing it for like 3 to 5 years. But the first couple of years, you're really just swimming in something that you can't see anything, because you don't know. It's this territory you have not traveled before.
It's skinny branch stuff.
Yeah.
And it's a skinny branch hanging over those cliffs in the Brazil that people dive off. I think it's Brazil, right? and it's horrible. But you know what? I don't know about you, but I go out of my way sometimes to grow some skinny branches, right? Because I love the thrill. It's a bit of an addiction.
Yeah.
When I'm feeling comfortable and everything's going according to plan, I want to make some drama.
Right.
Because I'm at my best, sitting comfortable and, there's a lot of people in the, I don't like that. So I like to start something new. And like I'm 64 and I still love to get out there. Like Joe Biden, everyone's saying 88 or whatever he is. Why would you run? Go Joe. I don't think he'll win.
Right.
But, it's go Joe. Don't give up. Mahathir, who was Prime Minister of Malaysia for so many years, then quit and all this sort of. He came back at 92 and won.
Wow.
And he ran again at 98.
That's crazy.
Go figure. So you get Develomark up and running, all right? And you said, as you said, the first couple of years are bloody horrible and terrible. And I mean, you do deals you probably wouldn't do now, right?
I definitely wouldn't do now, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like you can sit back. I don't think you're not picky or choosy. I don't like to say that, but you're sort of more refined in your decision-making process, right?
Of course.
And that 276 clients you got, I bet you love every one of them.
Yep.
Right? Whereas back in the day, you had 10 and 8 of them you wouldn't invite for a drink, right?
Yep.
But you had to make the money, and
Yep.
it's tough. But when you first started out, what was the driver to basically do what you did with your dad and replicate it for others? That was it?
I think when I found out that SEO was a thing, I became in love with every single component of it overnight. Everything about the idea of getting a website to appear at the top of the search results, using a framework was everything that I had been looking for.
Yeah.
So everything that I learned in high school and community college and then at my work, I was waiting for that perfect business opportunity for me to just like quit everything I go and then just go full into it. And they just showed up one night. I watched a program and it was by this guy, Ty Lopez, and he was teaching people how to do social media marketing. And then somebody taught SEO in it. And the SEO part just like automatically clicked in my brain. Like if I knew that this was a thing when I was 7 years old, I would have had a company since 7 years old, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't know it was a thing. I had no idea. I always thought that people just went to Google to search and that's it. I didn't know there was a $65 billion business model behind it.
Yeah.
And so the moment I learned that that was possible, I would stay up every single night learning and just trying to consume as much as I can about it.
Yep.
And so eventually it became, I need to do this on real people's websites.
Yeah.
And so I kind of just got out of my comfort zone, saved a little bit of money on credit cards, right? I just opened up credit card debt. And then I just learned. And those initial learning opportunities were those clients you're talking about. And so really the conversation really sounded like, Shane, I'm new at this. I'm not going to let you don't pay me a lot. Here's what I'm going to do for you.
Yeah.
And people started saying, okay, let's do it. And then so I started collecting $100 from people, spending $400.
Yeah.
So automatically I was just losing a bunch of money over and over again until my credit cards maxed out.
Yeah.
And that's when I really had to like put my business boy hat on and say, okay, revenue, expenses, profit. Like how can I start actually making money? And ultimately that became with the confidence of me actually telling people I'm going to charge them enough money for me to make profit.
Yep.
That came with confidence that I was going to deliver a result. Because if I was going to charge somebody and not deliver a result, I would feel like a scammer. And that ultimately would make me not grow. And so it wasn't until I learned from about maybe 10 to 25 accounts how to actually get results so that they're making money that I started feeling confident on charging high enough prices.
Yeah.
Which is ironic because with the new stuff that I'm learning now, I'm starting to feel like I'm in that same situation I was a couple of years ago with just a completely different business model. And so I'm nervous, right? I'm not making money. I'm losing money. And I don't know how this is going to help somebody. And I'm starting to see that same thing. But like you said, I had the most boring year last year. I don't want to say boring, but it was not like I wasn't anxious, which meant I wasn't growing. If I'm not anxious, feeling like things are all over the place, I'm probably not growing. Where this year, I feel a little more anxious. I have a little bit more energy. I'm a little bit more excited. And so that's a good sign that I'm going to experience some growth this year. So that's kind of how it started. It was testing on a bunch of things, losing a ton of money doing that until I found something that was inside of my field of expertise that I can really start to scale. And I found that by losing a ton of money trying a bunch of different things, because what I would do is I would go on YouTube or buy these programs online, learn everything, try it, learn everything, try it. And then until it started working, I wasn't really making much money.
How long did the credit card venture capitalist last?
It lasted a while. It lasted probably like a year and a half, 2 years.
And then you started to make money or be able to pay the bills with the business money?
Well, I got really lucky. I started building up credit card debt, and then I was paying the payments, right? Because I was collecting a little bit from clients, but spending more in credit cards.
Yeah.
And so I was making minimum payments. I was like almost like Ponzi scheming myself.
Yeah.
And then eventually what happened was I got a really good customer and I paid off all of them at once. And then from there, I just never got back into it again.
I reckon that's a key, when you get that one good one, that's when the jump starts. I don't care, when people turn around and say, oh, you've got to get 50. Yeah, but you might get 50 that are paying you $50 on an inconsistent basis. But when you get one that's paying you 50,000 monthly, that's the jump. But I don't know how you found it, but a lot of them can end up focusing just on that one. They don't take advantage of okay, here's your quantum leap potential,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they bask in that glory, of, oh, I got 50 grand, I can buy a BMW, I can do all this sort of stuff. But they forget, if you really utilize that 50 grand guy, well, you can buy a Ferrari,
Oh yeah.
and employ better people and develop better products and services. So I admire you went from the one good client and then you took the next jump, right?
Right.
But I also admire you because you did the credit card thing. It's so funny where a lot of people don't want to take that risk,
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to put the balls on the line. It's a terrible thing to say, but it's the truth. Where,
Yeah.
if this doesn't work, you're going to lose everything. It's probably why I love Elon Musk so much, right?
Right.
Because the guy has risked everything 3 times, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
right.
look at him, like it's crazy. So I'm interested in that bit where you said you didn't have an anxiety, because I noticed, because we look at each other's stuff all the time, right?
Right.
And I noticed there was this year, which was last year, where you appeared to be doing things to strike the boredom,
Mm-hmm.
right? You were doing, videos on stuff, and you were talking about this, you're talking about that. I've noticed a major change in you this year,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's why I said you get bullish on things, but you've done training classes.
Yeah.
And you've gone for diploma things, and you're increasing your knowledge. So I was watching that and I thought, Ruan's onto something here, right? I think that's a thing with people where they get stuck in the mud, as you said, and they don't say, I'm gonna develop something else. Do you think that's a problem with a lot of guys in entrepreneurs?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think when you look at in the history and you look at things like at a very micro level, you look at Blockbuster and you look at their fate and you look at their timeline they ran, which was very successful, but overnight destroyed, right? Because the ability to stream videos online became a possibility. And so if they were comfortable, they're just going to keep making money for the short term, but the long term, they're really going to not succeed. And so I think we're at that rare shift in history right now where the internet is changing how it talks to each other. The internet is changing the way it operates. And there's a lot of different things that's happening right now that I really feel like it's going to change dramatically fast, almost like COVID. And people in this small community, we have our beliefs in what's going to happen and how it's going to happen, when it's going to happen. And when that does happen, there's going to be certain skill sets that are going to be really important to the everyday person, the everyday business owner, the everyday developer, the everyday entrepreneur, the everyday creative, the everyday artist. And if they don't have those skill sets, they're going to become completely replaced with people who do have those skill sets.
Yeah. And
so,
you're preaching it, brother, right? Because my attitude, because I read a lot, I study a lot, and I think that's something I got from my dad. All right.
Right. Right.
And since November last year, right, which I sat back and I said to all the crew, I said, the writing's on the wall, this business is going to have a COVID, right? And it's true. And that gets us to the things you're bullish on, right?
Yes.
Now, I was joking when I said I'm bearish, right? I'm so bullish on AI, right? I'm all in, I tell you, right? Crypto, I love playing at the casino, right? I'm a blackjack man, mate. I will take risks. But to me, crypto, you can convince me of more. But crypto to me is like playing illegal blackjack, legal blackjack. It's like having a hand in poker and bluffing the other guy, right? Another one is I'm old school, cold hard cash. I love cash, right? So crypto, you'd have to do some convincing with me. But the one I want to get your thoughts on is AI, but I also want to get your thoughts on metaverse, because maybe I'm wrong. I'm feeling Zuckerberg, who's the driver behind all of it, right?
Yeah.
It appears like he's put it on a box on a shelf for a minute.
Yep.
And he's pulled down the AI box, opened it up and gone, this is fun and games. And this is instant. Let's go. And he's going to blow them all away because he's got lots and lots of money and lots of people, right? The only other one be looking at is Elon, because I think if he gets in, it's going to be crazy. ChatGPT, goodbye, right? And of course, Microsoft. So, do you think I'm right, metaverse AI, or do you still think metaverse is going to come around? Yeah.
Yeah, so a couple of comments on that. AI is definitely here to stay, and I think that if you're not using it now, you're going to be very upset because in the near future, you should be learning how to use it. You should be learning how to play with it. The issue is with the AI is that it is going to dramatically change our business model fast.
Yes.
And when I say that, you saw Sam Altman, who actually is the CEO at OpenAI.
Yep.
He basically mentioned AI is not going to replace you. A person good at AI is going to replace you. So I see it as a tool, and I see it as no different as having a hammer when you go to build a house, right?
Yep.
You can do it without the hammer, or you can do it with the hammer, and you could choose. That's up to you. The metaverse, though, is particularly interesting because as our devices get better, the need for more immersive experiences are going to become more in demand. So as Mark Zuckerberg's exiting this whole metaverse play, which he is probably not even 1% of the importance of the metaverse compared to the real players in the game, like Vitalik Buterin, who invented Ethereum, which is a blockchain just like Bitcoin. But that's a crypto. But ultimately, the metaverse is interesting because as we connect on things like this, like Zoom, our devices are just getting better every day. Our handhelds, our computers, our hardware for visual stuff. Because when you look at a memory card for a PlayStation, which is a gaming console in 2000, that device held 4 megabytes on it. So that could only hold 4 megabytes of information. Now we're talking 5 terabytes on a PlayStation 5, or whatever the amount is now. It's in terabytes. So as a kid then, I would have never imagined the types of things that I'm seeing now. I didn't think it was possible. And so the need for richer experiences are eventually going to become very important because people are going to demand higher quality experiences. And I'm talking about my kids and their kids, right?
Yeah.
And kids are growing up, they're on the iPad, they're playing these games, they're connecting with other people with gaming, and they're connecting with other people with Roblox, Minecraft, all of these other things. They're addicted to, right? That's just the way they're socially going to connect. And so the metaverse is the freedom to do that with your own website or with your own destination or with your own thing through somebody else's website. So think about the experience becoming more immersive and more interactive rather than two-dimensional, which is what we're looking at right now when we look at each other on the screen, rather as, hey, Shane, I'm actually here with you. That's the difference between the metaverse. So it's interesting seeing Mark Zuckerberg exiting, but then Apple releasing their headset in like 2 months. So that's going to be really... Oh, go ahead.
Let's say the metaverse, let's say it was 10 years ahead of where it is now. COVID would have been the biggest, greatest thing of all time. We wouldn't have cared. We were stuck at home. Right?
Yeah, correct.
Because, we were trying to tell everyone when we were building websites, you've got to change this thing so fast. You've got to start thinking, how can I have a website that when people go there, they think they're walking through the store? They think that first call to action is, hey, welcome, open up the door. If virtual reality was 10 years ahead of the game, that would have done exactly that, where you could get in there and look at a rack of clothing, your virtual self could try it on, and the mind doesn't know the difference between reality and not, right? It's picture driven. You would be sitting there putting up the virtual credit card, making payments and doing all wonderful things. And I think that's where it will be a big change. That's why I'm glad we make websites. Because we're getting on this train with the metaverse, with AI, as long as you're smart enough to think, where can we apply this? And start to study and open up your brain and think outside. And this is the other thing it does. It gives us this ability to think of all these incredible things that are now possible. Right? So I'm like you. I don't think I use Zuckerberg as the thing because he's the most obvious, right?
Right.
But I think it's the future, and you've got to change. AI, it's now in our company. right? And we're
Right.
a company in the Philippines. It's basically part of the game that everybody in this place uses AI.
Right.
What do we use it for? To start the conversation.
Right. Or to start the design.
Thinking process.
Yep, exactly.
Right? And you know what I've noticed? It's cut down the time so fast in doing things. We're not using AI to write the whole thing.
Right.
But we're using it to start the conversation, start the process, start the thinking. Even me, and I'm a prolific blog writer and speaker and everything else, I use AI. Instead of sitting there for 35 minutes thinking, what am I going to talk about? I'll ask it a question. And that will start the process thinking. But the metaverse, if you would ask me 2 years ago, I wasn't that excited. But I'm starting more and more and more to see. But when do we get to the point where you're not wearing the big Oculus thing?
Yeah.
When that's shrunk down, then I think you'll see a massive change as well.
Yeah, and I think it's also really important to note too is today's metaverse is accessible via desktop and phone. So when I think of a metaverse, I think of basically the immutable exchange of your property and your rights and your ownership of your data and basically freedom. So it's interesting to see the digital wallet, which Apple has done really well. On your device, you have a wallet. The only difference with that wallet is it's Apple's. So the metaverse, you own your data and you take that data where you want to, and you let people access that data instead of the other way around. They access the data without your consent and they sell it. So I think that's one shift. The other thing to think about what we just said is that because information is not scarce anymore, general information, right? Websites are all going to have the same information. They're all going to have the same photos. They're all going to have the same text. They're all the same media, same format, same style, because we all rip each other off, right?
Very boring.
Very, very straightforward. And so what's going to happen is it's going to turn into like the newspaper, where you see this one medium of content, and then there's somebody making this other medium of content, and that might drive them to install that on their computer or download that in this or go to this website or buy a VR to do this. That's when we're going to see the change and the shift towards people using, whether it's browser-based metaverse applications, which is what we use now, or VR-based metaverse applications, because the need for content is going to change depending on what the actual use case is going to be. And think about how that's going to impact search engines. Search engines' jobs are to show visitors unique experiences. Well, a 3D experience with a real gamified approach is going to be a little different than reading a two-dimensional website. So, of course, this is not going to be good for every single type of business, right? So when you need a plumber and your toilet's leaking, you probably don't need to go through a VR experience, right? But if you're going to college, or if you're learning a skill, or if you're learning how to do something, or even if you're trying to shop for the right thing, like you mentioned, trying on different clothes, test driving different cars, that's where I think the metaverse is really going to shine, for these places where the experience needs to be enriched and the user can take what they own into that place and use it through the form of an NFT or a cryptocurrency. So the cryptocurrency, to me, I've never gambled with it. I've never even noticed that people gamble with it until I started kind of reading up on it. To me, it's a technology, it's a money for the internet. And so when the metaverse becomes popular, we're not going to give it cash. We're not going to use credit cards. You may use a credit card, but behind that technology really is the blockchain doing its job, because cryptocurrencies are immutable. They're digital currencies. So when a website pays you, which is an interesting thought right now, instead of advertisers advertising, websites are actually just going to pay people to visit them. And so that's going to be an indirect form of advertising. The Brave browser, which was a invention by the guy who wrote JavaScript, is a Web3 browser that basically does that. So instead of advertisers paying, they pay the user, which is super interesting. And so once that kind of shift happens, like you said, with COVID, that's going to dramatically increase the need for going in virtually. We're actually having a class this Friday. This is not a pitch, but I just want to let you know we have a class this Friday. It's going to be my first metaverse class. So people actually who have VRs are going to log in, and I'm going to host an event there. And so I'm going to learn back to kind of like eating shit for a couple of projects. I'm going to learn exactly how to do these kinks before everybody else kind of gets onto it, because it's going to turn into a situation where it's like, I'm a metaverse expert. I can do this in the, we're going to go.
There'll be freelancers all over the joint, and it'll drive you insane, and it'll be like it is now. But I think the other thing about crypto, and again, maybe this is the bear of crypto coming out or the bull, right?
And that's fine. Bear is fine. Bear is good.
You know what? But it's like PayPal, Ruan, right? Now,
Right.
PayPal, we use PayPal. We don't see the money, right? We don't feel it. It just goes in one spot, out the other spot. Everyone gets paid, and someone makes a percentage and all. And it's cool. It's like it's just so normal for us. Stripe, same thing. Crypto will be the same, right? Digital currency. Maybe get rid of the crypto name, right, out of our brains and replace it with digital currency, and it'll be like PayPal to us, right?
Right.
And one thing I have noticed, all this stuff, because it's changing so fast, we have to change so fast. The consumers are changing fast. And if I look at where we live, right, which is we're an hour and a half from Manila. What is the one thing I hate to do? Get in my car and go somewhere. Why? The traffic is insane. Right. It's crazy. Now, if I could sit back in my house in front of my computer and have an interactive virtual reality situation where I could buy something, try something, look at it, because that's the one big failing I see with ecom, that I like to feel things, touch things, see them, try them on. When that's possible, watch what happens with retail sales. They'll go crazy. You want to go to a hotel, what do you want to? I want to look at the room.
Right.
Before I book.
Of course. Yeah. You want to smell
all of
it,
a sudden,
look at it. Yeah.
But this is where our business will change, because the website guys, right, we've got to have that brain where we sit back and go, we're going to create this site. It's like video, right? When you tell people you've got no video on your website, oh, well, why do we need that? We've got pictures. Pictures, that's old school now. It's not giving people the same experience. They want to feel it. And I'm not talking a 5-minute video. I'm talking a 7-second, 10-second. That's got to be on your slider, not no pictures, because they're not feeling anything. Right? Video on Facebook. You do a social media ad. Right? Now we are crazy in TheCamel about putting videos on all our social media. Why? We get more attention.
Right. Of course. Right? That's how it works. Yeah.
And I think that the metaverse is going to do exactly the same thing, but it's going to do it faster. You know, everything we do now is on COVID time. You know, it's so fast. And, you know, with us, we had the Saturday, we had our ball, and it was announced there was going to be a lockdown. And on Monday, we changed the way we did business.
Right.
In November, they announced ChatGPT. It's now April, and we've all changed the way we're doing business.
Exactly.
So when that, I mean, the metaverse, virtual reality, everything else, when that clicks, it's going to click so fast.
Yeah, exactly. Back to what you were saying about PayPal, right? PayPal is extremely interesting because it's centralized, meaning if PayPal fails, guess who else fails?
That's it.
All of its customers.
Yeah.
All of its customers. Whereas a system like Bitcoin or Ethereum, the system is using basically renting energy from different computers and paying those computers to rent the energy. So as long as there is one computer on renting energy on the network, it will never shut down, which avoids the single point of failure. And all of this was created during the banking crisis in 2008 because a lot of people lost money and they were wondering why are so much of our money reliant on one bank? And so for a open metaverse to happen, there needs to be an immutable money system that people cannot touch or it will be manipulated. And we know who's going to manipulate it. It's going to be the politicians and the very wealthy. So the guy who made this first technology on Bitcoin doesn't exist. Nobody knows who he is. And so it has to be that way. And any time in history, when somebody makes a technology and we don't know who it is, it's probably for a good reason. And so if there ever is going to be an open system internet where people can actually freely move money and without racism, without politics involved, they can just move money. Doesn't matter they're a woman in a certain country, doesn't matter they're a man in a certain country, they can move Bitcoin from A to Z, no matter what. Then nobody needs to have, it can't be a single point of failure because then it's going to fail. And if it fails, everybody else fails. And every project we've invested in inside of the metaverse or the internet is at risk because these places take our money and they make huge bets with them. Whereas this system is beautiful because it's just using the everyday computer user. It's taking their energy and paying them to do so, which is called mining. And from there, you'll have a money system that'll last at least 100 years or so.
Do you think it's you know, a lot of this, you know, it's like the rooster returning home for a lot of these guys, you know, like that, you know, social media. Zuckerberg had Facebook, and then he got greedy. He wanted WhatsApp, and he wanted this one, he wanted that one. And if he had his way, he probably would own TikTok, Twitter, you name it. So it was all his, right? Whereas what you're talking about, we got freedom.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that is, you know, it's like e-commerce. Really, they got you locked in there. You look at it and you think you buy it or you don't, right? We're the only one, and away you go. But you really want to be able to try it on. You really want to be able to feel it, right? You want to get that experience, but it's really all boils down to one thing: freedom. Freedom of making a choice, freedom of how you spend, freedom of the way it's not controlled, because we're all sick of the control bullshit, right? And I think that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I think that will be the major reason it'll take off. It's like AI, that it can make this opportunity where you're not locked into things. It can open up your mind to all these other ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than thinking this thing's going to make me a slave, it's going to cost me a job. I do believe some jobs it will cost.
Of course. I think it already has.
Yeah. I mean, but really, those people have the opportunity to upskill.
Always.
Right? Because AI can only give the foundation. But the opportunity, the thing, because it's not there yet.
Right.
Right. And I think I look at, you know, a lot of the freelancers all panicking. Well, don't panic, evolve.
Right. You panic, you die.
You know,
anytime in history someone's panicked, they've died.
I mean, they panic. What do you want to panic for? Evolve, right? Because you know that you turn around and you can either be a master or you can be a slave. What's the difference? You know, one evolved, right? And the other one decided, well, I'm going to be the boss of everyone. The slaves had the opportunity. There's 100 slaves, one master, and the 100 slaves didn't say, hang on a minute, there's 100 of us, one of you. Let's change the way things play. Well, it's the same thing with AI. It can be your master where you think, oh my God, the sky is falling, it's all over. Or you can sit back and go, well, we used to do this basic 300 word content thing for $50. Well, guess what? Good on you. Now you've got to go and do some advanced thinking, strategic planning thing for $1,500. Because AI can do what you used to do in days, it can do in 3 minutes.
And I think that's going to cause the internet to become cluttered with the same information. The rate at which we are producing content is making content not unique. And so the need for uniqueness is going to come from immersive experience.
Yes. And all those guys out there, they have that, but they've been lazy buggers making an easy buck.
Right.
Well, that's gone because there's a bit of technology that can be a lazy bugger making the easy bucks. You're the one now, as you said, to come out, be strategic, to be open-minded, to be more creative in the way we think, because AI is not that creative. It's not emotive, right? Human beings are. So there's this, I look at it, what a great market that has been opened up for crazy, insane people like us.
Right. Because ultimately it's a different way of doing things. And anytime there's a different way of doing things, there's money to be made.
Yeah, I'm excited. So I don't know what's wrong with my throat. I've got some
too excited.
I've got some tickle in it. I think it was my breakfast. I had corned beef and pandesal. You don't know what that means?
I don't know what that means. I'm curious though.
Pandesal is the local bread and the corned beef, but I shoved chili in the corned beef. I should have done it, right? Chili corned beef at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's not a good look, right?
No, that's a crazy look, yeah.
I've enjoyed this conversation so far. Let's go now, as we're getting to the end of our hour. I want you to think back. You know, there's a YouTube video of this admiral, was a Navy SEAL, and he's up there doing that college address when they graduate, throw their head up in the air. And he said, you want to get in life, ahead in life, learn to make your bed, right? And, you know, you get other people turn around and say, you want to get ahead in life, you know, shine your shoe. I'm one of those. You know, if you've got shiny shoes, except you're wearing Converse and stuff like that, but if you're wearing shoes, make sure they're shiny.
Right.
If you want to get ahead in life. Because my father taught me people will always look at your shoes. And it's another funny thing. I shave every day because my dad taught me you don't look like a bum. But you look at it nowadays, these guys are sitting doing boardrooms with 4-day growths. But you notice the founders and the CEOs and all these, they don't. Right? It's the underlings that get all fashionable. So Ruan's standing in front of the graduation class of 2023. And you're given that speech that's going to set them up for the rest of their life, that they'll always think of that speech. And what would you say would be, if you want to get ahead in life, shine your shoes. You want to get ahead in life, learn to make your bed. What would be the thing that you advise to those kids?
My advice would be to become comfortable with the unfortunate realities of human existence. Because so it's not like, oh, follow your passion or follow your dreams. Instead, it's just become comfortable with the extreme and unfortunate realities of humanity. And so if somebody screws you over, to them, they didn't screw you over. If you didn't do good, well, there's a reason you didn't do good. If you want something and you just got something, well, there's something fueling your craving. There's a lot of these things for humans that we think about and we know is true and we know is real, but we ignore. And so a lot of the stuff, if you come to fruition with it, when it happens, it's just like another bump in the road. And Napoleon Hill, who wrote Think and Grow Rich, actually, he described it really well. Listen, this is very difficult to do, right? And so I'm obviously always a student of this, and so is everybody else. When love comes and it goes, it goes. There's no reason to keep thinking about it for the rest of your life. That's never going to bring it back. And so reality is unfortunate, I think. Reality isn't pleasant. And the sooner that you're okay with that, I think you start getting more present and pleasant moments. Because I've had situations where people are like, why the hell are you so happy? And I always tell them, well, it's because you're worried about things you can't change. There's no way you're going to change politics. There's no way you're going to change, a lot of these different things that are on social media. There's no way you're going to change your DNA and a lot of the stuff you're just born with. And so the sooner that you can come to fruition with the reality that you've been given, the cards you've been given, I think the happier of a person that you can be, because every single moment you're not thinking about your passion and your happiness because you're thinking about something you can't change is just truly, that's every moment is depressing. Where if you kind of embrace the depression, Thich Nhat Hanh, he's a Buddhist and he passed away recently. And the first thing he tells people when they're depressed is, how long have you looked into the face of that depression? How long have you closed your eyes and really looked at the ugly face that is inside of you? And usually they don't do it at all. They go about their day and they'll never face it. But I think my advice would be to get comfortable with looking at the ugliness of reality, just as comfortable as you are as looking at the beauty of reality.
I love that. Wow. Clarissa, you like that? Clarissa loved that. And, it sounded like my wife and you would get along well, because that's exactly, there'll be something on social media or something, and I'll get so pissed about it, right? And she'll go, Mahal, which is love in Tagalog. She'll go, Mahal, what can you do about it? And I said,
nothing.
Like, what do
you mean?
So why are you letting it occupy your mind? Get over it, right?
Yeah.
And I turn around and I go, yeah. And, it was like a New Year's resolution to do what you just said, because I am one of those people. I get very emotional about social media events and all this sort of stuff.
You're passionate.
Yeah, I'm passionate, especially about, I'm passionate about I hate pronouns, and I'm passionate about what is a woman. I'm passionate about those things, right?
To your point, that's the kind of stuff that we know there's a truth there, but we're still thinking about all this. That's the key to being depressed. Is like, the truth. Why even keep thinking about it? You know what I mean?
And that's the point, right? I know what a woman is, and I know what he and a she, and I know that. So what I get aggravated in life is when minority people overcome the majority of people in a decision, right? To me, everything, it's like the way we run the camel. It's we all agree or we don't do it, right? And it's very much a democracy. Right? I like true democracies. And I get very pissed when all of a sudden someone just, people like Hitler wouldn't have got ahead in life if the majority would have spoke up, right?
Correct.
And, it's one of, if we look at all the great screw ups in the history of mankind, it's because the majority were cowards, right?
Right.
So that's my thing, right? I sit back and I could summarize that. Don't be a coward, right? If something's wrong, right, stand up and say it's wrong. Like me, I can't stand people that video something instead of stopping it. Right? In my mind, if you see these kids when they're videoing someone getting their head stomped on, they should go to jail as well as the guy that's getting his head stomped on.
Right? They were witnesses of it, and
right? It's just so wrong. And unfortunately, a lot of the world has gone that way now. So, but I also like what you said. It's one thing I'd love our kids to be taught is there is winning and losing.
Right.
And you learn by both.
Right. You learn a lot more from the losing too.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't lose a few.
Right. Of course.
Right? I don't win everything. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm going to teach my Annie, who's 3 months old, I'm going to teach her losing's an education. Whereas in the world today, a lot of it is there's no such thing as losing. It's unfair. Let's sue them.
Right.
And it's great. So I like what you said. So, Ruan, guess what? Our hour's up. But I have enjoyed this so much. I'm so excited. I've learned so much about you today. And I now know that there's going to be people out there watch this and go, oh, my God, I didn't know that. One, I didn't know you were from Brazil.
Where'd you think I was from?
I don't know. I thought you were Mexican, right? DNA. I thought he's got to be Mexican DNA. But now I didn't know that you had, the poor family.
Yeah.
But I also understand that the more people I speak to doing this, there seems to be this part of DNA of the great ones that the poor, the struggle, the motivated parents, all this stuff, that seems to be part of the process, the great ones. So it's a good thing. I love what you said you would tell the kids at school. I love what you've done. I love your passion about the metaverse. And I agree with you now. Last year, I did not agree with you. I thought, we shut up, Ruan. You want to sort of put glasses on and not talk to each other. I was like that last year, but I've changed because I've studied. Right. AI, you and I are on the same page, brother, with AI.
Yeah.
If you don't get on there now, well, you've got big problems 6 months from now, right? Crypto, I think if we changed the word and it was like focus more on digital currency, then I'm going to change that because I agree with you. Right? Money will be one of those things that I hate the way the banks make disgusting money out of us. And I don't like the way they use our money and lose it.
Right.
Right. It's crazy. So, Ruan, what am I going to say? Thank you.
Thank
Love you, brother.
Love you too, bro.
It's been a great, great 1 hour, and I'm excited. A lot of people are going to get a lot out of it. So don't forget, www.develomark.com. SEO champions, digital marketing champions, soon, metaverse legends.
I hope so.
Okay, you have a great day.
Thank you, Shane.
See you, brother. Hey, everybody, it's Shane from TheCamel.co, and I'm here with Jeffrey, and I just want to put a quick word out. Do you know that this video is one of hundreds of videos that are available on the Camel channel. And what are the videos? There's videos on how to sell, there's videos on how to market, there's videos on how to make something. We do a great curry. You name it, we got videos about it. And we've also got a lot of videos about the special offers that the Camel has. So it's not just this thing that you're seeing now, it's a lot of information, a lot of services. You want to know more? Just click on the subscribe button. That way you don't have to search, it automatically comes to your inbox. You do that, have a great day. From me, Jeffrey, talk to you soon. See ya.